Here we are. Power Hour 263 is underway, and it's something. We already have the Mosaic is all new to us now. We're covering that in our CFI class. A lot of new stuff going on. The FA is back in business. IACRA was down for many, many days, or a couple days at least, and we had to do all paper flight tests. That was exciting, right? So now that's done. So here we are. And today, if you're looking for Wings credit, I think we have Wings credit for that. Pretty sure we do. Um, you're going to find that in the chat. So everything that we're going to talk about is going to be everything that's coming up. Like if I say something, Greg, anything that needs to be like a link or something will be in the chat. Okay. So Nick will put that in the chat for you. So if you have a question as we go through, we'll monitor the chat, but I don't want to interrupt the flow of it until kind of the end. So let me explain what's going to happen then. So we've got an hour, about an hour, and we'll close the show out at the top of the next this hour coming, and then the room will stay open. So our CFI class is in this very room. So I'm going to make another room for us, and we're going to go over there and carry on with the class. And then you're free to stay in the room, and Greg can stay along as long as he wants. And other people can stay in as long as they want. I don't mind. Or we have an unlimited Zoom thing, so you can Zoom you like crazy if you want to. Okay, so that's kind of the format of it for today. And next week's topic, by the way, is going to be understanding VA, as particular how it changes, why it changes, and then understanding left turning tendencies as well. In maybe ways that you like you may be wrong about something. Let's just say that's your teaser. What am I wrong about? You have to wait till next week for me to tell you. I love it. I'm the guy, the 5 things never to say to ATC, or the 10 things you never learned in flight school. And you go like, what is it? So you got to click this link in order to get it, right? That's it. Okay. I got you, right? Okay. So that's that. So today we have a good guest. His name is Greg Brown. And Greg Brown is I've known of him for 25 years. Okay. Because I bought his book along. The first book I ever bought was, I mean, not first book, but one of the books I bought was Savvy Flight Instructor when I was becoming a flight instructor, because I was going to be a career flight instructor. So I knew that. So that I needed that. And so that was a long time ago. And then over the years, then I became part of the CFI study group and some other places. So we interact quite a bit, and we know one another now. So that's kind of good. He lives in Flagstaff, Arizona, which you can see there. And he's been a CFI for a long time. And he knows a lot of things that he can help us with and he can help you with. And I think that's really good to have him on, a privilege to have him on. He was Flight Instructor of the Year, and he's also in the Flight Instructor Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. He wrote for AOPA magazine, and he's got a podcast called The Flying Carpet, Greg's Flying Carpet. I mean, he's really worth following. So I'm going to introduce Greg to you now, and he's going to talk about CFI stuff. So Greg, I'm going to turn it over to you. You have the show.
Thank you, Nick. And
Who?
I'm thanking Nick too. Thank you,
Okay.
Mike, and thank you, Nick. That's what I meant to say. See, I've already blown it and I haven't even started yet.
You're good.
See, Mike, now we won't be friends anymore now that I did that. Uh, well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming. You know, a lot of you, of course, are working on your CFI, and this is a difficult achievement to accomplish to earn your CFI. But it's a really special club. The being a flight instructor is something that whether you do it as a career or whether you do it freelance occasionally or whether you do it en route to some other type, professional flying career, it's a special time in your life, and I hope you'll take time to savor it, even if you're headed for something else, because we carry dreams in our pocket, right? I have an airplane key right here in my pocket. Now, how many people can say that? And we get to deliver that dream to other people. So there's the short-term reward. There are the challenges of teaching people, and you know about a lot of them because you've either had them or seen them. But the thrill you get when you give someone their wings, the key to something they've always wanted to do. And then the thrill is they have their individual accomplishments over time. It's incredible. And people like Mike and I have been doing this for a long time. Uh, we have like retired airline pilots who still think we're cool. Uh, we did something for them way back when we were doing their primary training, instrument commercial, and so on. So I just want you to know I think this is a real special activity. And despite the fact that this is grueling and you're overwhelmed with outline after outline, and I'm going to show you some more of them today, the thrill of delivering people's dreams, something they never thought they could do, you can't beat it. And so I hope you'll approach this with an attitude of, I am going to really have a good time sharing the magic with other people. Now I'm going to head over to my PowerPoint here. We'll see if it works right. That seems like a good start. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, obviously, that's my picture at the top. I was a little younger then, but I would like to ask each of you right now to enter in the chat the name of one special flight instructor who you had, who stays with you and rides along in the cockpit with you. And when you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, appears back here over your head and says, Greg, I told you not to fly into weather you can't see through or whatever. Okay. So if you would do that for me, I'd appreciate it. Just put in the name of someone special as a flight instructor because that's who we are going to be. That's why you're going through hell to do this. And, and it is hell at a certain level, right? Okay. I want to, I'm going to start here with, I have a little trouble with my system here. Some of you will know some of my books. The Turbine Pilot's Flight Manual, if you're headed for the airlines, you'll see that one. Almost everybody sees that. The book that's relevant to today's discussion in particular is The Savvy Flight Instructor. And I'm going to do something I don't normally do. I'm just going to show you quickly what's in this book because I'm going to talk about some topics today I think you'll find valuable and interesting. I hope so. But there's so much more here. It represents a lifetime of work on my part and expertise from others. So I just want to give you an idea why you might want this book. This is the table of contents. We're not going to read everything in here, but I just want to give you an idea. Landing your first CFI job. Some of you are having that challenge right now. It's covered in detail. Professional opportunities in flight instructing. Where do new students come from? How do you recruit them? How do you use social media to market your services? Converting prospects into flight students. Um, how to give an intro flight and how to sell based on that intro flight. Professionalism. Be a professional and an expert. That's what we're supposed to be, right? Tricks of the trade. Here's a big one. Encourage independent action while maintaining control, right? Let your student make mistakes. How do you make that work for you without taking risks? Um, keeping your students flying when they get discouraged, preparing them to pass the tests, both the knowledge test and the practical. How do you get repeat business from your customers? This is a biggie, that the business of flight instructing, stuff like how much should you charge? How do you set your rates? Uh, how do you make money at this? What receipts do you need to keep? Should you be an employee or a contractor? That's all in there too. And then some experts, other experts, Jason Blair, a lot of you know about him. He wrote a chapter on instructor specialization. What are the different specialties where you could make good money instructing? Um, and then flight schools. This also applies to independents, but how do you make your flight training customers your sales force to help you get more students? And how do you keep students who would otherwise drop out? client success policies. This is for flight schools again, best practices, market opportunities. And then Heather Baldwin, who wrote for uh, Aviation Week, case studies of marketing and customer service innovators in the flight training business. So I don't normally go through this stuff, but I just want to give you an idea why, if you find what I present today interesting, you might find this book valuable. There's a lot of stuff in here, and it's organized in a manner that you could just go to the area you're interested in today. Okay. One of my challenges in speaking today is that we've got flight instructors instructing at academies, or will be, that are, basically closed system type training. And then we have others who are in flight schools that are appealing to popular market, Part 61, traditionally we'd call them, right? And so I'm going to touch on things applying to both of them. I realize a lot of this about getting students and so on is going to be of less interest to those of you who are in academy environment. But I'm going to run through this. There are still plenty of people who want to learn to fly. So this is really on the, I guess you'd call it the Part 61 side in terms of us generating business. One reason we care about this, those of you who are looking for a flight training job or will be soon, is if you can, not only will this be valuable once you've got your CFI, but if you can line some people up who would like you to teach them, that's the best ticket into a Part 61 business, right? You go into the flight school. Hi, my name's Greg. I've got a couple students and I'm looking for a place to instruct. That is extremely effective because you're bringing your own business. Okay. Some of our challenges in terms of selling flying is prospects don't come to the airport, especially now that airports have fences around them. They're really sealed off. So not a lot of people have exposure to it. There's a lot of competition for people's money. Excuse me. And some concerns that come up over and over, and some of you have struggled with them. I can't afford it. And am I too old? I wear glasses. Is that a problem? Some of this stuff that's been lingering since I learned to fly. Sometimes the family is resistant to this because they feel it's dangerous. And then one of our biggest problems is that far too many students drop out, and we always hear that number 80%. I still think that's probably not far from the truth. Now, in terms of promoting yourself and your business, there are three basic things you really must have if you're going to try and generate your own students or students for your flight school. Our website is our brochure. So this is the place. If someone wants to learn to fly, they're going to search, they're going to Google for flight schools in their area. If you meet someone and they want to learn more about it, you're going to send them to your website. So you really have to have one. It can be as simple or as fancy as you like, but ideally it explains who you are, who your flight school is, and why you would be, what some of the benefits and adventures of being a pilot are, and why they should come to you, because the next thing you want to do, of course, is get them to the airport. So the website, even though we don't spend a lot of time, we tend to think, oh, websites, who looks at them? But those of us who have websites know that you get a lot of traffic from people Googling, looking for what we do. And then whether we all know print stuff is old hat, but photo business cards are phenomenally valuable. And sure, you can click phones instead and share your contact information, but you don't have to tell anybody who you are or what you do. If you meet someone and you're chatting with them and you hand them your card with your phone number, they know what you do. And you got a QR code on the back to send them to your website. Okay? And then aviation clothing. So let's go on to the next step here, looking at these couple of things. This is my business card. Now, even here, I looked a lot younger on that business card than I do now. But what do you think how people would react to a card like that? So a picture of you with an airplane or in the cockpit, it really talks about the adventure of flying. You want to have a really pretty cool picture if you can. This one's probably a little over the top. It goes back to my magazine column days, but it's still, I can tell you, it gets attention. Then on the back, I got a little about myself and a QR code to go to my website. This clothing bit is so subtle and yet so big. If you wear clothes that show you're into flying, anyone who sees you, whether it's at the gym or out to lunch or, at the grocery store, if they're interested in flying or if they're pilots, there's a pretty good chance they're going to come and talk to you. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a 172 on there. You can have uh, the SR-71 or any kind of an airplane on there, a fighter jet, a bomber. Social media sites are valuable. One thing to keep in mind, I know a lot of younger folks here they're not on Facebook, but a lot of your audience that has the money to fly is on Facebook because they're a little bit older. And so I still feel Facebook, with all its flaws, is important. But social media in general, um, you want to be prepared to take and post photos of your students. Blog or a newsletter, e-newsletter, those can be valuable, especially for a flight school, because once you've met someone and their future prospects, you keep them alive by sending them something. They subscribe and they see this. Um, a print flyer, those are generally not necessary unless you're going to take my advice here and speak to community organizations about flying as a way to engage them and recruit possible students. Now you really kind of need to give them something if you can, or at least put a QR code up. But if you're going to do the booths or the Learn to Fly talks, you can print color brochures, a trifold, or whatever, very inexpensively. This should be obvious to most of you. There are a lot of rusty pilots out there. Young pilots want to learn to fly. Underserved audiences like women and minorities. It's ridiculous, especially minority women. I mean, how often do you see an Asian woman pilot or a black woman pilot? It's crazy. So these are actually untapped audiences for us for business. Professional programs that folks who want to go to an airline academy, they're headed straight for, an airline career, let's say. There are a lot of older people who've always dreamt of being pilots, and now they have the money, but they think they're too old. Well, they might not be. Midlife career changers are huge. And those of you on Facebook, I highly recommend a group called Student Pilots Over 50. You will not have to show ID. So if you're not 50, it's not a problem. It's run by a great guy named Neil Singh. But what you see there is that the truly huge number of people who've always wanted to be a pilot, now they have the money and they're out there struggling their way through it. And you're going to learn a lot about their accomplishments, their challenges, and how big that market is. Once you get them out to the airport and you give them an intro flight, I like to take the approach. I think that the typical discovery flight is too short. And if someone comes out and they're seriously interested, I would say to them, we can do this $60, $100, whatever intro flight for you if you like, this discovery flight. But I would recommend, if your budget allows it, that we do a full first lesson. And here are some reasons. First of all, we want to have time to chat with them a little, find out why they want to fly, because then we can direct not only the intro flight, but their training toward what they want to do. They still have to learn the same maneuvers and so on, but we can put it in context of what you'll do when you're an airline pilot or what you'll do when you fly your family to the lake. And that's helpful. You should deliver each intro flight as if to your best friend. And one of the reasons you want to do a full hour, you want to give them the pre-flight, train them on the pre-flight of the airplane, take them in there and have them fly for an hour, hour and a half, because this is critical. Customers must feel a bit of mastery. They got to leave saying, go home and say to their spouse or partner, whatever, honey, I actually flew the plane. I could fly it. It was incredible. If the intro flight is too short and they don't feel mastery, then we haven't offered them the incentive, the key that, hey, you can indeed do this. You want them to go out of there saying, I'll be wasting today's lesson if I don't continue. That's how they should feel. And ideally, you schedule the next lesson before they leave. In fact, Manny Peralta is an Australian flight instructor friend, and he has something he calls the willing, able, and ready intro lesson checklist. For willing, he asks them to tell him about their interest in flying, the prospect. And he has learned that if they have a long history of interest, like building model aircraft or flew with their mom in Australia or watched planes as a kid, they're much more likely to go on. And then he comes up able. Will finances allow you to fly consistently if you start lessons now? Well, that's a really important question. We're going to talk a little bit about price, how to address pricing shortly. But one of the things you want to find out is, for their sake as well as yours, like if they need to do a little saving first before they start, and that way they don't get interrupted in the middle when they run out of money, you're doing them a big service, even though you'd like to start them today. So this helps. That's a really important question. And then his third question is, and his willing, able, and ready checklist, can I book your next lesson for later today or Saturday? All right. We cannot be afraid to discuss what, and this isn't a case of a private, but all of them, but especially the private, we cannot be afraid to discuss what it really costs. We really have to do that in terms of being honorable, in terms of allowing them to prepare so they can succeed. And so I like to show them first, this is what the FAA says you need, and they're probably familiar with that already, but this is what I find it really takes. And you can refer to the national average, what, 50, 70 hours, whatever it is now, probably 70, maybe more. But you can pencil that out and show them, well, what kind of money are we talking about? And then you can talk about, this gives you an opportunity to discuss what you as a flight student can do to control your training costs, right? One is to prepare for lessons. That saves a lot of money because you're not paying all that ground training time. You may have a range of aircraft to choose from, and there may be different instructor rates in your flight school. But you don't want to be afraid of the bottom line. Now, what I like to do is, now their mouths have dropped open when I told them this might cost them $15,000 or $12,000. But look at what everything else costs in our life. Excuse me. Pardon me. I put these figures together, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and they're already low. A UTV, a used one, is going to be $14,000, $15,000. A kitchen remodel, you'll be lucky if you can do it for 20 grand. A cruise is going to cost probably at least 20,000, a nice cruise. A new motorcycle. The bottom line is, now you look at a lifetime of piloting adventures, and $12,000 to $15,000 is not such a crazy number. But it may require planning, just like the kitchen remodel does. You might have to save some money or borrow some. Now, once you've got your clients involved with the training, they can help you sell to other customers. One, you want them to have a great training experience. You want to meet their goals. You reward their accomplishments and publicize their milestones. Okay, because enthusiastic grads are our best repeat customers and marketers. So one thing we want to do is recognize their achievements And one of the best ways to do this is on social media. So you should always be prepared to take photos of your student in the cockpit or some interesting place you've landed or whatever. And then either if they're game, befriend them and post photos or provide them with the photos so they can post them on their website. But you want them to be visible on social media. One, they're proud of what they're doing and it engages their friends, some of whom will be interested. And those friends also, through their admiration, help your clients over the rough spots because they expect them to continue and finish. Okay? Um, Again, anything you give them that lets them show off that they're pilots, yes, they're student pilots, but they're pilots. Those are things other people see. And one other thing I want to mention, we're used to the big accomplishments like first solo cross country, but there are a lot of lesser accomplishments in terms of FAA accomplishments. There are a lot of lesser accomplishments that are huge for people. Like a great example is the first time you do a greaser landing. You know, you've been struggling with these landings for hours and hours and hours. Now you make a nice landing, it's perfect. People are your students, your clients are very excited about this. So if you can do anything to recognize that, at minimum, make a big deal when you get back to the flight school. But anything else you want to do, if you get a shot of them, you know, Jill made a fantastic landing today. I'm so proud of her. And you got a picture of her beaming in front of the airplane. She'll have fun showing that to her friends. Makes her feel good, makes you feel good, and it inspires other clientele. This woman lives up in Montana, and I got a big kick out of this. She was so excited about, I can't remember if she did this after first solo or when she got her certificate, but she had a bunch of these aviatrix decals made for herself and some friends. Now, this is something you could have made and give to people on the occasion of their first landing, first, you know, greaser or whatever accomplishment. Look at the look at her face. I mean, this is a blast. So watch for opportunities to do things. You don't have to spend a lot of money to offer things that make people feel good about their accomplishments, but celebrate their accomplishments. Cockpit videos, people have different, instructors have different opinions about the value of these, whether they want them or not. But at least occasionally, this is something that people love to show off with. And it's also something, if you have a pilot shop or even as an independent, if you can offer video components, that's a way to make some additional money that also serves your client well. And some people, some instructors like to use them for training a lot. Now, keeping them at it. 6 months and $5,000 into flying lessons, I'm beginning to wonder if this is something I should really pursue. Becoming a pilot's always been my lifelong dream, but this is tough stuff, and we all know what the dropout rate is like, and some of us have been the dropout and happily came back to it again. I think we all know why people quit. They don't mesh with their flight instructor turnover, especially you know, a year or two ago when things were really hopping. You know, you might have 5, 6, 7 different CFIs. That's every one of them is every new CFI is a step back just for you as a student, just because you have to now re-engage with someone new with a new training style and probably relearn some stuff you've already seen because the new person doesn't know you know it. No validation of CFI opinion. Sometimes you get a situation where the flight instructor has some opinions of things you need to work on as a student, but the student isn't convinced those are correct. Um, Ground school, which the variety of ground school options and the lack of direction from some flight instructors about what ground school should be done and when and how it should work into the training. serious problem. The bottom line is I can't finish this darn thing. I'm spending money and I can't finish it. So what are we going to do about this? First of all, you're all sick of hearing about syllabi, but they're critical. And they're critical for a lot of reasons. One reason is this is the reason why the Savvy Flight Instructor book exists, okay? You go through all this training, you get your CFI, and I see this on every platform of discussion, every social media platform, every gathering. We've got new flight instructors. Okay, I got it. I'm a CFI. Now what do I do? Well, when you're a new flight instructor, especially, the syllabus is critical because it tells you what to do. My first CFI job was with a 141 school. It was not an academy, but we did keep the 141 records. It told us what every lesson had to be. Well, obviously, once I taught that a few times, that became embedded in my psyche, and it was less necessary for me to look at that constantly. But this is important guidance for a new flight instructor. It's very important for your students. And I'll show you some other useful things here that the syllabus does. So the flight student has been on number 8 lesson on landings and is really frustrated and feels like they're not getting anywhere. It's really great if at the end of every lesson on your post flight, you have a little graphic of some kind like this, and you show them where they are in the process. So they know they're getting somewhere. And what's also great about this is, let's say they are struggling with landings, then you point out, hey, this has been a long road going through the flight basics and then getting landings. This is a long, slow road. But from here on, now you're into solo practice. That's a pretty brief thing. Cross country is just a couple flights. Excuse me. And then you're going to brush up for the test. So you're actually past the worst of it, but it shows where they are. Ever seen this before in the Aviation Instructor's Handbook? Most flight students, when they're discouraged, they've had a terrible lesson, they feel. They bounced the plane every landing. They had to go around 3 times. They couldn't get the landings down. They're dejected. They feel like, hey, I can't do this. I may not be cut out for this. I don't know if I want to come back and spend $300-400 again next week. Right? You can see that their heads are down and they're on their way back to their car. If any one of us in this entire group of several hundred people today bumps into them in the parking lot and they reveal that feeling, and we chat with them for 5-10 minutes about, hey, all of us go through this. I went through it. You're having trouble on your third lesson in the pattern. Well, believe me, I still make bad landings in the jet sometimes. You'll turn them around. They'll come back tomorrow. And so I like to suggest that everybody post the learning plateau thing on the wall next to their desk at the flight school. Because everybody goes through this period where they're not making progress. I like to say, hey, you feel like you're the one who's stuck on landings and can't get through them. We've all been there. In fact, this is so common that we instructors, when we're training, this is in our training handbook, and it explains that after a rapid period of progress, there will be a leveling off where you may feel like you're not getting anywhere, and then you're back on the road. Well, that helps me get through my discouragement. You can't have a pep talk if you're not talking to anybody, right? It's critical that you introduce your students to each other, to other CFIs. If you have a flight school, or even if you don't, if you can do it informally with other instructors, any type of gathering that gets students and instructors together socially. I love the flight schools that do the weekly barbecue or monthly barbecue. This is the place where they get the pep talk from their peer who's 3 lessons ahead of them, right? So that's really important. And so you notice the extended socializing period, you want these folks to get to talk to each other. Another thing is, especially in a flight school environment, what do you what do you do to if you know that someone's on the verge of quitting? I think it's a good idea to actually assign someone in the flight school who's a third party. This is very often in a smaller flight school will be the owner or the manager. And when you think someone needs a pep talk, you can give them the pep talk as your instructor, but you've also got someone they know someone else in the flight school they can go talk to. This is also a big deal if their instructor leaves that to go on to greener pastures, so to speak. You want to have someone there who has a relationship with the flight student who and knows them well enough to set them up with someone else who'll do a nice job, another instructor. Customer success policies. Now, I'm kind of branching out a little bit into flight school stuff here, but I think it's all still relevant. It's always best to schedule the next lesson before your student leaves. And it's good to have a policy of, hey, if we haven't heard from a flight student in 2 weeks, we're going to call them and welcome them back. So that means someone's got to keep track of this, right? Have a clear billing policy on ground instruction. We all know how much that varies and what the controversies are. The students have to know what your policy is. You should be charging for ground school, and it should be in a measurable way. And they need to know that so they're not wondering if they're getting screwed over, your students. This is huge. Never end a lesson on a bad note. If you can tell that the student is discouraged by the events of today's lesson, they found it hard, you need to either in the post-flight discussion give them a boost or even add something on at the end of the lesson that they can do easily so that they come out of there feeling good, even though they had a rough time on one of the maneuvers. But if they leave really discouraged, and this is expensive stuff, right? They may not come back. So you want to avoid that as much as humanly possible. Now, one of the biggest things for keeping people flying is to empower your students, your clients, to be pilot in command. There are the two biggest factors in empowering them, in teaching them, and in keeping them coming back are one, allowing them to make mistakes when it can be done safely without interfering. So they're in a mode of, whoa, that was tough. What should I do about that? That's a great teaching moment, right? And making it fun, enjoyable, exciting as much as possible. Those are the two biggest factors. Now, by empowering them, we want them to feel like, hey, they're pilots in charge too. We want to encourage them to question us about things they don't understand or they're wondering about. We want to, if they have concerns, we want to address them. And I've gone so far as to say, if you catch me in something wrong, I'll buy you lunch. If you catch me saying something and you can show me that I was wrong about it, because we're all human. We do make mistakes. So then we want them to go out there and look through the books and talk to other people. And if they can catch us in a mistake, that's empowering for them, providing, we handle it in a graceful way, because none of us likes to be wrong. Um, a couple quick things there in terms of empowerment. Let's say you're out at the airplane doing pre-flight. The student noticed, we've all seen this or done it ourselves. They noticed that some of that one of the plastic fairings where the wing joins the fuselage has a crack in it. Greg, come on over. Is this okay? I'm a little concerned about this. And I'll say, oh yeah, it's non-structural, blah, blah, blah. But if I see they still have like a wrinkled brow, this crack, they're a little afraid of flying at this point, have them go get the mechanic out of the shop and come over and look at it. In other words, let them do the analysis. Don't just say, trust me, I'm the instructor. That empowers them. Um, Another thing in terms of making it fun, a very quick story. A friend of mine was taking instrument instruction out in Maine, And he had an instrument instructor he liked very much, and that instructor got hired elsewhere and moved away. So he gets a new instructor. The new instructor was a newly retired airline pilot, and it happened to be their first opportunity actually flying the soup. So they take off in his Cherokee 140 and they fly into the clouds and they go climbing through the clouds. And we all know this feeling, right? Darker, darker. And, it's the first time he's in the clouds, right? He's sweating. This is crazy stuff. They break out on top. And my friend Bob says, "Wow, this is it, blue sky, that beautiful white deck beneath. This is cool." And the instructor, if you can imagine, said, "We are not up here to sightsee. We are up here to focus on the mission at hand." So he threw a wet blanket on this student at an instant of, right? What an opportunity that is for us as instructors. The students sweating all the way up through there. I don't know if I can do this instrument stuff. They break out. It's exciting as can be. And you're like, you know, Mary, you won't believe the kinds of things you're going to see. Sure, instrument flying's hard. It's a little scary sometimes, but this gives you an idea. I mean, this is so cool. That's a fantastic motivational moment. And this instructor flushed it down the toilet. I mean, it was terrible. Um, if we can capitalize on the excitement and the enjoyment when it's possible, that keeps them flying. You want stage checks, even if they're not required. Even if you are an independent CFI, you want to have someone do stage checks. Another instructor may have some tips that will help your students get past some rough spots, angles that are different than yours. A huge thing, though, is you really don't want to have your students' first flight with another pilot besides you be their check ride. We all have different ways of doing things. There's just a different feeling by having someone you don't know in the cockpit with you. So stage checks serve some important, they're very valuable from a training standpoint, but also in terms of preparing your student for the ultimate check ride. The stage check has a little bit of nervousness associated with it. I highly encourage you to do this and define where they'll be on your syllabus. Now, how many of you know someone or have yourself gotten to the point where you were ready for your check ride and still had not taken your written knowledge test? That's inexcusable. We need to take command of where our students, we need to place responsibility on ourselves and on them to get the flight physical done at the point we think it should be done. There are differences of opinion about this. And the same thing with the knowledge test. Because if we don't tell them when and where it should happen, you're just looking for trouble down the line. So I like to see those on the syllabus. The flight physical is a ticking time bomb if we just tell people go get a flight physical. We all have heard and maybe ourselves experienced going in not knowing what to expect at the flight physical and having a problem. So you don't want to have someone get way down the line on training and then find out there's a problem. What's more, you definitely don't want them to go in cold, not knowing what they're getting into. So at absolute minimum, have your students phone AOPA's 800 number. Yes, they'll have to join, but if they can afford lessons, they can join AOPA. Speak to the medical department about, hey, I'm about to go in for my first flight physical. And then the good folks over there at the medical department will interview them about their background and so on and say, well, you're going to need a letter about your blood pressure and you might need these tests or what. They're going to prepare them for a higher likelihood of passing. And then there are some consultants like Wingman Med who are AMEs who actually usually give an initial. I know Wingman Med gives an initial free interview to talk about any medical conditions, and then they can decide if they want to use a consultant in order to make sure they get through the process. But what a bummer to have them deferred or turned down halfway through their training. You'll have someone come into a flight school, they go straight to an instructor, and nobody else knows the student except the instructor. Now, again, if you're freelance, this is normal. But from a flight school standpoint, that's not good. You want to have a relationship with someone else in addition to the CFI, as I mentioned. A big point here I want to make is the second point there. Weekly CFI meetings, especially for those of us who are fairly new at this game. There is nothing more valuable, nothing, in making you a better instructor and helping you teach than to have a weekly meeting at your flight school or among other, among freelance CFIs at the academy. There's certainly an academy thing too. Have a weekly meeting to talk about everybody's students' progress. Because that's a place where you can find out, you can get tips from other people on how to address challenges. You can offer encouragement to others. It's a confidence builder for us as flight instructors. And you can also get some help. Sometimes you get a student that's a real serious problem. Well, what should we do with this? Well, now you've got a little committee who can discuss this rather than carrying the whole burden yourself. That's one of the most important tips I'll give you today is that weekly CFI meeting. If you don't have them now, you should, and you should go over all the students' progress. And you won't believe how much it'll help you, not to mention your students. The customer satisfaction check, actually, I had this on this last one. If you're in a flight school environment, I think it's valuable to have the chief flight instructor or one of the senior flight instructors or the owner actually schedule some satisfaction checks as a third party to chat with the student and make sure that they feel like they're making progress and doing well with it. Okay. I call these merit badge lessons. There are lessons that are not on the syllabus that are of extreme value if your customers can afford them. And you can even put a sign up and say, here are some optional merit badge lessons if it fits your budget. Nobody understands why soft field takeoffs and landings feel the way they do on pavement, right? I mean, trying to balance that thing so that the nose wheel doesn't hit the ground. But once you land on a real grass strip, you understand instantly. Make a fly somewhere and visit an automated flight service facility. There aren't many of those left, or an approach control facility, or a control tower. Um, these are things you see. None of them are specifically on the list. Take an IFR lesson and fly above the clouds. Take a sailplane lesson. The crosswinds lesson's a big one. If you've got a student who can handle it, you say, today's a tough crosswind day. We can handle it. If we go up today, we can safely handle it, and you'll learn some things because light crosswinds are very hard to rationalize. As flight instructors, back to where we started on this, can you believe we get to fly airplanes? I mean, is there anyone here who doesn't occasionally say to themselves, I can't believe I get to do this? We want that fun to go to our students. And we are rewarded with that fun ourselves. So we got to keep appreciating the cool stuff we get to do while everybody else is stuck on the ground in an office. If you decide to buy my Savvy Flight Instructor book, be sure you get the new one with the clouds on the cover. It's much newer, it's much more current. Okay? Now, the current one, the second edition, is not available as a print book except used anymore. And I won't go into my frustration about that, but it is a fact that that book is not in print. However, it's widely available, fully formatted as an ebook, Kindle, Apple, ASA, and so on. You can get this readily. But be sure, regardless of whether you find a used one somewhere or you download it, be sure you get the second edition. I do have the podcast. I've got a QR code there if any of you are eager to follow it. and I'm going to point out two episodes you may be interested in. Bowling alley hot dogs. Some of you may have heard this or may not. These are a couple of the scariest, most educational experiences I've had as a flight instructor since 1979. So I think you'll find it interesting if you care to listen to that one. And my most recent one is about a young 16-year-old I took flying who had never flown a real airplane before. And it was the most incredible first lesson I have ever experienced. So those two in particular, I think you'll like a lot of them, but those two are really about CFI stuff. And my book, Flying Carpet, The Soul of an Airplane, goes back to my days, my longtime column in Flight Training Magazine. Some of you may have known that. Flying Adventures with Lessons. You'll probably enjoy this book, but this is a great book for your students. Okay, and then again, there's the current edition with the clouds on it. What a pleasure and what an honor to be with all of you today. And I wish you the very best with this. Again, I want to encourage you to really have fun with this process of teaching, even if it's a stepping stone to another place. And I think you'll be thrilled with what you're going to get out of being a flight instructor.
Wow. That's pretty good. Look at you got all the hearts and all that all this stuff going
I
on.
love it. I'm
Yeah,
thinking about inviting my wife to come in here so she can see all these hearts on the screen.
yeah, look at them all. They're amazing. It was a bit of a touching experience to see all those people put in those instructors who meant the world to them and they hear them. That was something I really liked. I thought that was exceptional.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that was really good. Well, as always, Greg, you did a bang up job. Yeah, yeah, look at these. Now we do have this recorded, so you're going to see that. You're going to be able to play it for Jill. You'll be able to do that. So that'd be fun to see. Look at them. They're really fun.
Well, I'll
So,
enjoy that. And with your permission, Mike, I may
yeah,
again go ahead and post that on
yeah,
some of my sites.
you bet. You bet. You bet. No problem. So what we're going to do here is we're getting to the end of the hour, of course. We have 3 minutes left. Uh, so I think for the new CFIs, you got a lot out of it there. Some people had asked during the presentation, not off topic, they said, I thought this was going to be on design maneuvering speed. That's next week. Just so we're not forgetting about it. It's just sometimes the FAA emails kind of overlap. And if you think the one you click on now might be the one for this Saturday, but all the ones I saw today were for the next Saturday. So that does happen. So anyway, sorry, but hopefully you still learned something. There was 500 and 10 of you at one time in the room. So there's quite I was watching that. It answers some chats. And then, yes, please have Greg back for another time. Of course. Who would say no to that? Right? Who would say no to that? Yeah. So, yeah, yeah. So I would thank him for doing what he did. He put together a presentation for that and used I think his book is like I said, I had that book a long time ago, the first edition. Right? So there's that, right? I had that. I used that. So there you go. So in some sense, I'm still Greg's student, right? Problem with that, right? At all, right? So Wings credit is in the chat. So I'm going to leave the chat open for a little bit, even after we close, so you can get the Wings credit. Uh, but it's in the chat. So you have to click onto that. And then you got to put in your email. You can't put your email address in the chat. We won't do it because it's just too labor intensive. So when you do it the other way, it just gets uploaded to FAA as one big old file and out it goes. Right. So it's not a big deal. And then what I'll do, I'll be closing the show here in just a second. And then when the show is over, I'll keep the room open and Greg can say as long as he wants or as short as he wants, talk about anything you want. And then we can unmute you, and you guys, you know what to do. You basically, it's like an airplane. If you step on someone, you hear something, tower yelling at you, then you'll know what to do. You're aviators, so you kind of sometimes you have to tell people. The other thing I would caution you on is to make sure that you're muted, because you can be unmuted here soon, and you know how to remute yourself, because sometimes you don't know. We hear a lot of interesting stuff. It's like a stuck mic. kind of like you're stuck. Okay. Except for I can yell at you and you can hear me. Right. So you can do that. So typically someone in the room would be able to, Nick or I'll, and Greg or somebody else who can make some other people co-hosts so they can mute you if that becomes necessary. So let's see. I'll just do that with Alex would be around for a little bit, maybe. I'll just do that. So then a few people. And then we're gonna go. Andrew Whitehall is here, so he can be co-host if he wants. Why not? That way you can kind of moderate for a little bit. What I will end up having to do is I'll have to leave the room and go take care of our CFI class, but I will join in at the breaks, which are 10 minutes to the hour. And then I'll see what's going on, see if any fights broke out or anything like that. So, okay, well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Again, I really want to thank Greg for showing up and doing it. Live from CFI Bootcamp in Miami Beach, Florida, this is the Power Hour. Welcome.